Brenda Craigdarroch would not stop smoking. She did acknowledge that smoking was detrimental to her health, but so is driving around in a car or eating steak. And as she would not interfere when people did those things which she did not, she saw herself having a rightful demand for non-interference regarding her tobacco habits. Whenever a person told her to stop smoking, she invariably replied, "Go fuck yourself." Or if that person happened to be from Seattle, "Go fuck yourself, asshole." If somebody tried to criticize her smoking via a suggestive question, like, "You know that smoking is bad for you, right?" Or, "Have you ever considered quitting cigarettes?" she would always reply, "Shut up, asshole." However, if a person asked that last question in a tone of genuine interest, without the implied suggestion to stop smoking, like, "Have you ever considered stopping cigarettes?" she replied with a sober, "Considered, yes, decided against it." Or if that person happened to be from Seattle, "Considered, yes, decided against it, asshole." Besides the actual joy that smoking a cigarette could give her, a joy which faded a bit over the years, like with any hobby when it becomes a habit and is done too often without real awareness and conscious presence, she occasionally found it a very practical excuse to get out of a situation. Like if she had been having dinner at a Greek restaurant with her fourth boyfriend, and there was a party of 23 high school teachers taking up 2/3 of the room. And the 5 of them sitting closest to Brenda and her boyfriend were sharing gossip that made one of them cry out ecstatically. Brenda would have, with mild complacency, taken the opportunity to leave the room and smoke a cigarette. This one smoked out in the cold next to a sign with fake Greek letters. And while several buses passed by, she would smoke with an awareness and mindfulness, which reminded her how much she was no longer doing anything with that much awareness and mindfulness. And she'd decide to come back in to her boyfriend in spite of the frolicking teachers and enjoy the rest of her stuffed eggplant, the conversation, and later at home the sex with her boyfriend, much more than she had enjoyed anything lately, thanks to that one cigarette in the cold. Brenda chose her places to eat partly by the criterion of how easy it was to get out and smoke there. With the exception of one cake place and bakery downtown, she regularly frequented, even though its owner enforced a strict, fair to say, militant anti-smoking policy in and around his establishment. That owner was a German immigrant who, among his loyal customers, who all, including Brenda, had a love-hate relationship with him, was known as the Cake Nazi. Brenda fell in love-hate with the Cake Nazi on the day when she was having some buttercream cake and suddenly heard from across the room, "Are you sure it's the processed sugar that makes you feel uncomfortable at night? Or the creeping realization that your pseudo-progressive hedonist West Coast lifestyle is just as meaningless as every other kind of existence? Just asking." Then and there, Brenda knew that she would come back to the place, even though she was not allowed to smoke within 10 meters of the building. She felt that a gooseberry cream cake and a hot chocolate would cushion her longing for a cigarette anyway, and were also worthy of relishing bite by bite with clear consciousness. At that bakery, there was always a bowl of apples on the counter, whose purpose was that if an uninitiated customer came in and ordered something like a vegan blueberry muffin, please, the Cake Nazi could point at the bowl and say, "Want something vegan? Eat an apple." Customers were actually free to take an apple. There was an assortment of Fuji, Elster, Brayburn, Gala, Ambrosia, Kanzi, Jonah Gold, Lady Alice, Spartan, Boskop, Honeycrisp, and Golden Delicious. And Brenda knew all the apples were delicious, and so were the cakes. Which is why a sustaining group of patrons, including Brenda, kept coming to the place and just sat through the occasional yelling one could hear from the counter, like, "You want what? Dairy-free, gluten-free cheesecake? That's cheesecake without cheese and cake. Eat an apple." One day, 4 teenagers came in and ordered a pumpkin spice decaf latte with soy milk, a gluten-free oatmeal cookie, low carb, no sugar with carob chips. Can I have 2/3 of a banana loaf like that, but made with rice flour and some cashew butter on the side, but only with cashews in it? Please make sure it's not mixed with sesame or sunflower seeds, and I cannot eat almonds either. And a piece of the strawberry cake, but without the crust if it contains eggs, and almond cream, but make sure it's a non-GMO kind. And do you have kombucha with coconut flavor? While the staff ushered the teenagers out, the cake Nazi ordered the kitchen to close for the time being, then proclaimed that this country is doomed, and went on a 5-day hiatus. Each of those 5 days, Brenda stopped by the place, observed a growing number of patrons lingering there, waiting for it to reopen, trading addresses of ersatz bakeries for the time being, and exchanging the best insults they had heard from the cake Nazi. Rumor had it that after what was now called the coconut kombucha incident, he had locked himself up in a darkened room with 2 of his own loaves of dark rye bread and 5 gallons of water, reciting paragraphs of Schopenhauer, Nietzsche, Immanuel Kant, and Hagenbuch in order to, as he said, purify himself and be able to bake again with nothing but butter, flour, sugar, eggs, and presence of the mind. And Brenda smoked a cigarette or two and invented some new curse words for the city of Seattle, which she abhorred and despised without having a specified reason for that. Thank you.
That was funny as hell.
I mean,
That was great.
That's
That's one of my favorites.